So and is it quite common for the DA's office to change charges that maybe you take warrants out for?
Yes.
Did you also speak with some other witnesses by the name of Peggy Banks and Kim Smith?
I did.
And did you make note of that in your report?
I did.
Now, at any point, did Millie Place ever have a second interview?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that interview, how that came to be.
We had gotten information, I believe it came from Mrs. Lambert, that Millie was now kind of making disclosures of abuses in the home.
Number one, this number to testify. Number two, this is just going to get this. If we're not offering the truth, we're offering it as to why he initiated that second interview.
Well, that's officer conduct, true. That's an important section of sustained the and never sustain each other.
At some point, did you ultimately set up a second interview with Millie?
Yes.
And tell me, where was that interview held?
It was at the Lambert's residence.
Now, you said the first interview was held at the Southern Crescent Sexual Assault Center.
That's correct.
Can you tell us why the second interview was held at Ms. Lambert's home?
So typically, yes, the standard is to take the child to a CME so that basically as a mentor to make sure that, we weren't asking the child anything that was leading or suggestive and all that kind of thing.
So Detective Mellon was present during this interview?
He was.
And you mentioned that he was trained in forensic interviewing?
Yes.
And do you recall what Millie disclosed during the second interview?
She did disclose how, whenever Jennifer gets mad at them, sometimes she snatches them or grabs them up by their arms, holds them up by their arms, things of that nature. And she made mention of, I want to say it was Layla being kicked at one time, but she never, I think that was it.
Okay. And would it be safe to say that whatever is contained on, did you all videotape this?
I'm trying to remember. I know that it was at least audio recorded. I want to say we used the Surface Pro and tried to videotape as well.
And whatever's contained on the video would be an accurate representation of what Millie disclosed that day, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Did you also come into contact with a person by the name of Sarah McKee?
Yes.
And who is Ms. McKee?
She, I believe one of her children goes to the gym tech, and that's how she had knowledge of the Rosenbaum.
And how did Ms. McKee first come to your attention?
I believe she just reached out to me and called me.
And did you interview Ms. McKee?
I did.
And at some point, I'm going to show you what we previously admitted as State 213. Is this something from your interview with Ms. McKee?
Yeah, it's just a photocopy of my notepad where she had told me she had observed an injury on Layla and kind of drew a makeshift figure there of a torso, and she just basically pointed to me where the injury was.
Prior to Ms. McKee doing this, did you show her any photographs that were associated with this case?
Oh, no, no.
Now, at a certain point, did you all obtain a search warrant for bugle swabs to test the DNA on the butter knife that was obtained at the scene?
Yes.
And those bugle swabs were submitted to the GBI for further analysis?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Did you know Jennifer Rosenbaum prior to investigating this particular case?
No.
Did you know Joseph Rosenbaum prior to investigating this case?
No.
Did anyone from any of the following agencies pressure you in any way regarding this investigation? The Henry County Police Department?
No.
The Henry County Board of Commissioners?
No.
The Henry County District Attorney's Office?
No.
The DeKalb County District Attorney's Office?
No.
The Cobb County District Attorney's Office?
No.
Department of Family and Children's Services?
No.
Any other government agency?
No.
Did they pressure you in any way to bring charges against either Mr. or Mrs. Rosenbaum for any sort of political vendetta?
No.
Nothing further at this time.
All right.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
Just wanted to touch base on a couple of things that you mentioned. What was the background of Detective Mullins? What schooling did he have?
I can't testify to that.
Did he have forensic child interviewing background or forensic interviewing
I
background?
believe it was child, but you'd have to ask him.
So you don't know. As you sit here today, you don't know what his background is.
I don't know. I know that he said he was trained in forensic interviews. I just trust his opinion, his word.
And let's talk a little bit about the warrants that Mr. Chase was mentioning. Isn't it true you took out a warrant for Jennifer for failing to feed Layla, for starving Layla, correct?
I'd have to see the actual charging document.
You don't have the actual charging document with you?
I don't.
Okay. So you do not recall charging her with cruelty in the first for failure to feed?
That verbiage I don't remember, but I knew it was mostly related to the bruising and, the other broken bones and things of that nature that were sustained.
You later found out, did you not, that she was well nourished? Isn't that true? Layla was well nourished.
I later found out from the ME that, she couldn't really substantiate that, the child was malnourished.
In other words, she was well nourished. Yes? Is that a yes?
Yes.
But story about malnourishment had gotten out into the press and into the public sphere, isn't that true?
No, I got that information from talking to other witnesses, just based on information that I received.
You're not listening to my question.
Okay.
That story of malnutrition had gotten out into the public after you took out those warrants.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Now, you talked to Miss Lambert, and she told you in June of 28th of 2015 that Jennifer had picked up the girls. And the girls had come back with bruises.
Okay.
Do you recall getting the records for this visit?
No, Mrs. Lambert basically documented everything herself. She kept a notepad where she documented all that stuff
But you
herself.
never got the records to see whether she took the child to the doctor or not, did you?
We already subpoenaed records, medical records and everything, so that wasn't in any kind of medical records, like the little mark on her eye and stuff like that. I doubt that she would even go to the doctor for something like that.
Isn't it true, though, Detective, that Miss Lambert told you she took the children to the doctor because of the bruises?
I recall Mrs. Lambert saying she would report that to her defects caseworker.
So as far as you don't know anything about a medical visit.
That I can recall other than the broken leg.
Did a doctor report to you that he had seen any bruises or cuts on the child?
No doctor reported to me.
Now, you asked Jennifer about the broken arm, and you told her, and she told you that she was not aware of it. Isn't that true?
I believe that's, you talking about in our interview? Yes.
She told you that Layla did not demonstrate any pain or indication that she broke her arm, correct?
I believe that's true.
And in fact, she told you Layla had attempted to climb onto the mail truck.
I remember that.
And you talked to Miss Hall.
Yes.
She told you she was alarmed when Layla was brought to her residence. Did she call the police and report it?
Not the police, no.
No. Did she call a advice line?
Yes.
And an advice line is not defects, is it?
No, ma'am.
An advice line is not the police, is it?
No.
Now, Mrs. Hall told you 5 days later she saw more injuries. She still never called police or defects, did she?
She never made that known to me.
She never made that known to you.
No.
Now, the day after Layla died, you went to the Crescent Center, Southern Crescent Center, to watch Millie's interview.
That's correct.
And why didn't you do this interview?
I'm not a forensic interviewer, so I mean, generally speaking, first of all, it was set up by defects. It wasn't set up by myself. So I was just asked to attend.
But the reason you don't do it is because you're not trained in forensic child interviewing.
That's correct.
And the reason you didn't do it is because it's important for a child, when a child's statement is sought, that it be gotten through the advocacy center, correct?
It's suggested.
And it's also suggested that nobody talk to the child about the events and let the forensic interviewer bring those out, correct?
Typically, yes.
And Millie, in her interview, said that she was upstairs watching TV. Isn't that correct?
Which interview are we speaking about?
The Southern Crescent Advocacy Center that you witnessed.
Let me give me a second to refresh my memory. whatever reason, I can't find it here where I said anything about her.
Of your memory, do you know where she was at the time that Layla was allegedly downstairs with Miss Rosenbaum?
Based on our second interview, she said something about her being upstairs, I believe.
So you do recall that she said she was upstairs?
I do.
And when she did the interview at Southern Center, she told you she hurt her arm in gymnastics, didn't she?
Millie said that, she said that that's how she hurt her. Got the
And
bruise on herself.
She was detailed about it, wasn't she?
I'm not sure I would call that detail. She just said she did it during gymnastics. That was it.
Isn't it true she said that she was reaching for a high bar when she slipped and struck her knee against her elbow?
Yes, sir.
She also said that Layla hurt her leg at gymnastics, didn't she?
Yes.
And Layla wasn't hurt anywhere else, Millie said, right?
From what I can remember, that's all I remember her saying about it was just gymnastics. That was it.
And she said that Layla uses the low bars, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you yourself concluded in your report that it was possible Layla was simply engaged in play but not enrolled in the gym, correct?
Yes.
And Millie said that Layla is usually picked up by her waist by the coaches.
Yes.
And Millie said Layla did not break any other bones.
She would know that, but yes.
But that's what she said. And she was asked if anyone asked her to say anything, and she said no, didn't she?
Yes.
She never said anyone hurt her, kicked her, kneed her, or spanked her, did she?
No.
You and Detective Mellon talked to Millie again about 10 days later after her forensic interview, correct?
I believe it's about the time frame.
And to be accurate, this would have been, your interview with her and Detective Mellon would have been her third forensic interview, correct?
It wasn't a formal interview.
But it was done by a forensic interviewer, wasn't it?
Me and him both were asking questions of the family and of Millie.
So this would have been the third time a forensic interviewer asked her questions.
A person trained in forensic interview, yes, he asked her questions.
So
He did.
that's a yes.
He asked her questions.
And it was the third time that she was asked questions by a forensic interviewer.
For this investigation?
We had the first investigation, forensic investigation, because the allegations of somebody touching her,
Oh, yeah, unrelated, but yeah, but
unrelated entirely to this case.
that's correct.
Then there was the second interview, which was right after she had come back from the hospital, correct?
That's correct.
After her sister died. And then the third one was with you and Detective Mellon. And it was not structured like a forensic interview, was it?
No, it was very informal.
It was informal. You were asking questions, he was asking questions, Miss Lambert walked in, Kia was sitting there with her, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you and Detective Mellon talked to Millie after she had been with her mother and her great-grandmother, correct?
I'm not sure who she had been with in between that time period.
But in between the time from the funeral, she was with her mother and great-grandmother.
I don't know.
You don't know, okay. At any event, you asked about Jennifer Rosenbaum, didn't you?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, so you did not ask her what Miss Jennifer did.
Only after she, basically made mention of Jennifer.
So you did ask her about Jennifer Rosenbaum.
Yeah, after she initiated.
And you also asked about Joseph Rosenbaum, didn't you?
Yes.
And you were told by Millie that he treated Millie and Layla good, weren't you?
Yes.
And you had Kaya sitting there beside Millie to give her moral support, correct?
No, Kaya was just there. She just happened to be there.
Just happened to be there.
Yes, I didn't ask her to come sit here for more
But
support.
you didn't ask her to come sit for moral support.
No.
And let's talk a little bit about Peggy Banks. You spoke to her initially, and she said there was no suspicions of abuse, correct? Her first statement she ever made.
I do recall that when I first spoke to Mrs. Banks, she said she thought that the Rosenbaums were a good fit for the children at that time period, yes.
Okay. So the second time you talked to her, she contacted you, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
And she contacted you then several times after that, correct?
Yes.
With emails, with notes, with personal calls, correct?
Yes.
And she contacted you with supposed accusations against Ms. Rosenbaum, didn't she?
Yes.
And she contacted you about a month, the first time she contacted you was a month after the written statement that she gave.
I don't recall how long the time span was.
But in her statement to you, you tell people to write what they know, correct? When they give a statement.
I want the truth.
You want the truth at all times.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want the whole truth.
Yes.
Ms. Banks could have said anything she wanted to in that statement, correct, that she wrote, the first initial statement she wrote.
Yes.
But a month later, she had more information for you, didn't she?
I don't know the time frame, but yes, there was a time period where she was filtering information, and yes.
And what, on December 7, 15, she and Miss Kim Smith sought you out, correct? You interviewed Kim Smith.
Yes.
And Miss Smith had also given a statement where she said she had never seen evidence of abuse.
No evidence of abuse, but just that she did recall a mark on the child, yes.
But I'm talking about her first statement to you. Did she not say they were good parents?
She believes so, yes.
Didn't say anything about marks on her first statement, did she?
Not on her first statement.
In her first statement, she said they were doing very well with the Rosenbaums, right? She was happy with them being there.
Yeah, what she said was she thought that they were the Rosenbaums were, again, a good fit for the children.
She, too, came down to talk to you again after her written statement to basically contradict herself, correct?
I don't recall much of a contradiction.
Well, she didn't. She started talking about marks and bruises, didn't she?
A mark.
Okay. But she hadn't talked about that before, had she?
I don't recall how many times I spoke to Mrs. Smith. I spoke to Mrs. Banks more than I did Mrs. Smith.
But Ms. Smith gave a written statement to begin with and never mentioned any marks or bruises, correct?
I'd have to see the document.
Let's move on to Ms. Lambert. Ms. Lambert talked to you a lot initially, correct?
I believe maybe 2 or 3 times, I'm not sure.
And she talked to you some when you came out to interview Millie, correct?
She did.
Now, she never told you that Millie said that Joseph had beat up Millie on her back, did she?
No.
She never told you that.
No.
She never told you that Millie said that Jennifer was drinking and slinging the children up and down the stairs, did she?
No.
She never mentioned those two things to you, did she?
No.
Now, you wrote very detailed reports, isn't it correct? Your reports in this case were voluminous, correct?
Detail.
Detailed. And that's your hallmark, is it not? That's what you're known for.
Yes.
Okay. And nowhere in these statements does it say anything about Joseph beating Millie on the back, does it?
No.
Or Jennifer slinging children around up and down the stairs when she's drunk.
No.
In those reports, you documented what you saw, what you heard, and what people told you, correct?
Yes.
And Miss Banks ever tell you that Millie had said Jennifer made her eat her own vomit? Anywhere in your statements, in your reports, do you have that?
I don't recall me writing that.
You don't recall her saying that, do you?
Not that I can recall.
And you're a very detailed person.
I try to be.
Now, Miss Lambert never told you that Jennifer said, if they think the children are coming home without bruises, they've got another thing coming. She never told you that, did she?
I don't remember her making that statement to me.
And it's not in your reports. When you spoke to Millie, Millie said she was upstairs when Layla was downstairs with Miss Rosenbaum, right?
I believe that's what she said. She was upstairs, yes.
And she confirmed that Joseph Rosenbaum was out of the house at the time that she and Layla were with Miss Rosenbaum.
Yes.
At no time did Ms. Banks or Ms. Lambert talk to you about mashed potatoes, did they?
I don't remember anything about mashed potatoes.
And everything that Millie said is important, isn't it?
Yes.
And so you would write down anything that Millie said, that people told you Millie said X, Y, Z, you would write that down.
That's correct.
And you don't have anything about beating on the back on your notes, do you?
No.
You have nothing about eating mashed potato vomit?
No.
You have nothing about Jennifer bruising, saying that, her children would come back with bruises?
That Jennifer, I'm sorry, say it again now.
You don't have anything in your notes that says that Miss Lambert told you Millie said Jennifer, I'm sorry, let me start that over. Let me start that. You never received any information from Miss Lambert that Jennifer told her if they think the children are coming back without bruises, they've got another thing coming.
No, I never received that
You
information.
never received that information.
No.
And you're the lead detective in this case.
I am.
Thank you. Family counsel.
Detective, it's safe to say that if something, that the things that Ms. Mull went over with you wasn't sent to you, you didn't put it in your report, correct?
Correct.
All right. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, he's leading with this.
Does it mean that it's not true?
No. No, it does not mean it's not true.
Now, let's talk a little bit. First of all, is this your complete report?
These look like the notes that I made.
Is that your report?
Yes.
Okay. This pile look a little smaller than the one that Ms. Mull was just waving around?
That's correct.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the starvation aspect. You did speak to Dr. Darisaw about that, correct?
I did.
And based upon that, did you have any further concerns about this being a medical starvation type case?
No, not a medical starvation.
Were there any concerns that were brought to your attention from family?
Yes.
And did that play into some of the reason why you've been investigating that?
That's the only reason I would explore that, because I got the information from someone else. Yes.
Okay. And as a detective, is it important that you investigate?
Yes. Yes.
And ultimately, did you find out that starvation was not something the medical examiner was concerned about?
Yes.
Warrants, when warrants are taken out, those are public, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Mull mentioned about being brought to a children's advocacy center for the forensic interview. Who interviews children at the children's advocacy center?
Generally, a forensic interviewer.
Someone who's trained in forensic interviewing?
That's correct.
And that's the same training that Detective Mellon has, correct?
That's what my understanding.
Now, Ms. Mull asked you about the first forensic interview and the gymnastics that Millie said that Layla hurt her leg in gymnastics, correct?
Yes.
At any other point during your investigation, did Millie explain where she got that information from?
She said that Jennifer Rosenbaum directly told her to say that that's where she got the injury from.
And that's something that you heard Millie say yourself?
Yes.
And when was that?
That was when I was at the Lamberts.
She also talked about the various forensic interviews. Millie was only interviewed twice for this case, though, correct?
For this case, yes.
Now, there's also conversation about Ms. Banks and Ms. Smith. Is it safe to say that in the beginning,
Objection to legal, Your Honor.
It's not recent.
is it safe to say that in the beginning they had a different opinion than they did later on?
Yes.
And in the beginning, what were their general feelings about Ms. Rosenbaum?
They were excited that they seemed like the couple had had everything together. It was a structured family, and they thought they were a good fit for the children.
As they started to receive more facts, did it appear that changed?
It did change.
And at that point, were they providing you additional information?
Yes.
Now, specifically, Ms. Smith, did she indicate when the last time that she saw Layla alive was?
I believe they were at an event at Noah's Ark.
Did she indicate when that was, if you recall?
For whatever reason, I thought it was a birthday. occasion.
Okay. Did she discuss anything at that Noah's Ark? The last time she saw her in Noah's Ark, did she discuss anything in Noah's Ark that was concerning to her?
I want to say she was telling me how she thought that Millie was.
I would object to hearsay.
Responsible.
I would say they opened the door.
No objection was lodged.
Pardon?
No objection was lodged to my questions. I'm lodging an objection to this leading question.
Just because an objection wasn't lodged doesn't mean they didn't open the door.
Open the door to what?
To- as to-
everything or to just the topics?
Just Ms. Smith.
I do a lot.
Do you recall what, if Ms. Smith found anything concerning at the at that Noah's Ark?
She just explained that. I remember her saying that she thought that Millie was rather robotic and, for lack of a better term, meaning that she didn't sing like herself. She just did not. She didn't do anything without approval from Mrs. Rosenbaum, and made mention that she couldn't mess up her dress, and that she did tell me something about Layla as well.
Would it help to refresh your recollection if you were to look at your report?
Sure.
Did you have a chance to review your report?
I did. Yes.
And did she have any other concerns?
Yeah, she noted that she said she wasn't really that close to Layla, and that she remembers Layla kind of like flinging herself at her, like just wanting to be held by her, and that Mrs. Smith also had a male companion there with her that Layla didn't know, and that I think she gave Layla back to Joseph, and then Layla again tried to reach out to this gentleman, which she thought was odd.
Sorry, what you said?
She thought it was odd that.
Can I have 1 moment? Madam President.
Thank you. Recross.
Where in your notes do you have it that Ms. Smith said that she gave the child back to Mr. Rosenbaum?
Mrs. Smith said she gave Layla to Joseph Rosenbaum to hold, but noted that Layla, who did not know Mrs. Smith's companion, Jim, flung herself at him.
Flung herself at him. Now, that's what Ms. Kim Smith said.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about what you're talking about, the feeding with Mr. Chase. Isn't it true that the warrant that you took out said that by failing to feed the child in quantities necessary to sustain an adequate body weight? That's what you took the warrant out for, isn't it?
Again, I'd have to
Would it
see the
help
document.
refresh your
Sure,
recollection?
sure. This is the information that, based on the investigation at that point, that's the information I put into the warrant. Yes, ma'am.
Now, with regards to Ms. Lambert and Ms. Banks, if they didn't tell you something, it doesn't mean it's not true, but it doesn't mean it's true either, does it?
Not necessarily right.
So it doesn't mean anything. The fact that they told you, they didn't tell you anything, doesn't mean it's true or it's false. It just means they didn't tell it to you, correct?
I have to take everyone at face value, and then further investigate to determine whether or not I can, find the truth in that.
Isn't it true that by not telling you, it just means she didn't tell you?
It could be, yes.
Now, let's talk about June 29th. Isn't it true that on June 28th, let's back up, June 27th, Miss Lambert told you that the children were picked up by Jennifer Rosenbaum for visits. And upon return of the visit on June 28th, Miss Lambert noticed dark purple bruises under her left eye and a reddish bruise on her right arm. Would it help if I showed you a copy of your statement, sir?
Sure.
Isn't that in fact what Ms. Lambert told you?
Yes,
And she told you that she took the child to the doctor, to the pediatrician regarding the injuries received on her visit with the Rosenbaums.
yes.
And isn't it true that there are no medical records to substantiate that? Isn't that?
Would call sending any medical records.
So you don't, as you sit here, you don't know of any medical records that substantiate that Ms. Lambert took the child to the doctor for bruising?
Not that I can recall.
And there's no picture accounting for that bruise and cut, is there?
Not that I can recall.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, we can,
That's correct.
all right, thank you, and you can step down.
Thank you.
Objection to continue to not the same.
And you're excused.
Something's been opened up, is you have to testify later, so I might need to be available.
All right. Well, and you're still subject to return.
Sure.
Just stay in place where you can reach.
Yes, thank you.
Let's take a pause next, please.
State Constable Bales.
All the way up here, man.
Please raise your right hand. You swear from the testimony you're about to give to be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please lower your hand, you can have a seat. Please state and spell your first and last name.
My name is Crystal Bales, Crystal. Last name is Bales.
And Ms. Bales, how are you employed?
I'm currently employed as a nurse practitioner in a family practice.
And can you tell me a little bit about your background and training to be a nurse practitioner?
So I went to school to become a nurse. I got my associate's degree, and then I later got my bachelor's degree, and I worked as a nurse for several years before I became a nurse practitioner. And I've been a nurse practitioner for a little over 2 years now.
In 2015, how were you employed?
I was employed at Pt.1 Henry in the emergency department as a registered nurse.
And as a registered nurse with Pt.1 Henry, what were some of your duties?
I would triage patients whenever they would present to the emergency department, meaning I took the reason why they had arrived. I did vital signs. I communicated with the doctors and nurse practitioners and PA physician's assistants that were there treating patients, and carried out any of the orders that they gave, such as giving medications, starting IVs, assessing patients, doing a physical exam on them.
And on November the 17th of 2015, did you have occasion to see a patient by the name of Millie Place?
I did.
And how did you end up having to see Millie Place?
I was assigned to the minor emergency area as the registered nurse there, and she was brought in, and then I was assigned to take care of her.
Do you recall who she was brought in by?
A DFAX worker, I believe.
And did you, let me ask you, is it necessary to get some history before you start your examination?
Yes, it is.
And did you get any history in regards to Millie?
I was just told that she was being brought in and needed an assessment.
Objected, this is coming from third parties, you can tell the history that Millie gave, but not from third parties.
That's from the defects worker.
Yes, Judge.
Sustained objection.
Did you, at what point, did you at some point do an examination of Millie?
I did.
And where did that, I guess, examination occur?
In one of our exam rooms in the minor emergency area.
And who was present during that examination?
There was the DFAX worker, and there was also a photographer from the police department that was present.
Was,
You can approach just briefly.
Talk. Yes.
Can you let off on who was present in the room? Was there anyone else besides yourself, defects worker, Millie, and I believe you said someone taking photographs?
I believe that was all that was there that day that I can recall.
And tell me about your examination of Millie.
Whenever a patient presents, we have to do like a full head to toe examination. So she was unclothed at the time, so I did a full body examination and documented in my notes that day what I had found. We also listened to heart and lung sounds and make sure that she's alert and oriented, knows where she's at.
Were there any specific complaints of pain that you were made aware of as far as your treatment for Millie?
There was, I believe it was a left elbow pain. It's documented in the notes as well.
And during your observation and examination of Millie, did you make any observation in regards to any markings, bruisings, or injuries of significance to you?
Yes, I did.
And what injuries did you, see during your examination?
I would have to view my notes because I don't recall.
And the training was already been marked to enter into State's Exhibit, which is State's Exhibit 76.
So on my notes, I had written that there were bruises in various stages of healing noted to the left upper arm, left inner elbow.
Okay, now stop you right there. I'm going to show you this in Mark's Exhibit 78. And it's going to be behind you on that screen.
Okay.
Was this the bruise that you were referring to in your notes?
That's the one that was like on the left inner elbow.
And what were your findings as to that particular bruise?
Can you explain what
I
that,
think
what you
you
mean by
said it
that?
was in different stages of healing.
That's correct.
What does that mean?
So in different stages of healing, because some bruises were like purple or blue, there was some redness there, and then also there's almost a yellow color. So as bruises heal, they first are like pink or red, and then they sometimes can become like a dark red or purple color, and then as they heal even more, they become like a yellow or green color.
And is that what you notated on the injury in State's Exhibit 78?
Yes.
Are there any other injuries that you noted?
There was an injury on her right third finger, or I'm sorry, a bruise on her right third finger, her right upper arm, the right side of her neck, behind the right ear, bottom of the right earlobe, her right cheek, the left side of her forehead, left side of her neck, right knee, left ankle, and the right hip, as well as an abrasion to the her left upper back and the back of her head, and a red bumpy rash to the anal and vaginal area.
So overall, and I don't know if you've listed them out and counted, but overall, how many injuries did you find on Millie Place's body as far as bruises, scrapes, or scratches?
I'd have to count them. I don't. I counted at least 15 bruises, two abrasions on her.
And showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 79. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what are we looking at there?
This is Millie's back. So you can see towards her hip, there's a bruise there that you can clearly see. It looks like you can see it on her left upper arm as well in that picture.
And then State's Exhibit number 8.
That's a
What was
bruise.
your notation in regards to this injury? First, what area of the body were you looking at?
This is her right hip, and there's a bruise that is scattered across her hip area.
After your examination of Millie, what do you do next?
Typically, like I document it, and I would have let the provider seeing her know about my findings and let her know that I documented in the notes, and then she's good to go ahead and see her as a patient.
Did you ask Millie any questions about how those injuries occurred?
I don't recall if she would have told me about how they occurred. I would have written them in my notes.
Do you have any notes in your records that indicate how these injuries occurred?
It appears that there's a notation that was done by the nurse practitioner who saw Millie that says that she's.
Just asking, did you get any response from Millie as to how those injuries occurred?
I don't recall. Said I would have written it down if I had.
And did you write
Asked.
anything down?
I don't see anything there that I noted.
And Ms. Bells, are you familiar with like mosquito bites in children?
Yes.
And you say was already been entered into State's Exhibit as State's Exhibit number 68. Would that be defined? Would that be consistent with mosquito bites?
I don't see anything there that looks like a mosquito bite.
And are you a mandated reporter?
Yes, I am.
If a child presented to you with those types of injuries, would you have to report?
That's for speculation.
If a child presented with those types of bruises, would you be mandated to report?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Thank you, ma'am. Any objections for this being excused?
No objection, Your Honor.
You're free to. Let's get calls next witness.
Disabled called Emanuela Carr.
Manuel Carr.
Emanuela Carr.
Okay, Ms. Carr, right up here, please.
If you could please raise your right hand, ma'am. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please sit down and lower your hand. Please state and spell your first and last name.
Emanuela Arnold Carr, first name spelled Emmanuella, last name Arnaud-Carr.
And Ms. Carr, how are you employed?
With the Department of Family and Children Services,
And how long have you been with the Department of Family and Children's Services?
about 7 years now.
And what position do you hold?
Currently, I am a consultant. I work with the state office, supervisor mentor.
And in 2015, what position did you hold?
I was the after-hours supervisor and special investigator.
And as a special investigator, what were your duties in 2015?
So I managed a unit, and then as a special investigator, I was going out on cases that were pertaining to serious injuries, child deaths, and/or neglect or abuse from foster parents, daycares, things of that nature.
And what is, do you know the term substantiate?
Yes,
And what does that mean?
that means there was enough evidence to prove that it happened.
And unsubstantiated, what does that mean?
That means there wasn't enough evidence to prove that it likely happened the way it said it happened.
And as part of your job duties, are you to make a determination about whether a case is substantiated or unsubstantiated?
Yes,
In 2015.
yes. Back then, I was making a determination of whether cases were sub or unsub.
And on November the 17th, 2015, did you become involved in a case involving Layla Daniel in Lily Place?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to November the 17th, were you involved in any way with Lily Place or Layla Daniel?
No, I wasn't involved prior.
And how did you become involved on November the 17th of 2015?
I received information, call stating that the foster child was in the hospital or was on her way to the hospital due to a choking incident while in the care of the Rosenbaums.
And upon receiving that call, what did you do?
I immediately informed my supervisor and additional supervisor, my supervisor and an additional supervisor, which was the county director at the time, Ebony, and Ms. Taylor, and I informed her that I would be the one going out in the case, and she confirmed yes, I would be.
And did you go out on the case?
I did.
And where did you go?
To Piedmont Henry Hospital.
And when you got to Piedmont Henry Hospital, what did you do?
I met with the case manager, Samantha White, and she explained to me that she received a call saying the child was choking at home on chicken.
After receiving that information, what are the next steps that you take?
I talked to her a little bit about the last time she saw the child. I asked a few questions as to what she needed to do next. She was really upset and not looking good, so I suggested that she go home. At that time, the ambulance had arrived to the hospital, and the child was pronounced deceased, and they had taken her into a room and wouldn't let anyone else in at that time.
And let me ask you, prior to your, I want to make sure I get this straight, prior to your arrival, had the child, and are we speaking about Layla Daniel?
Yes.
Had Layla Daniel arrived at the hospital?
Not at that exact time, no. She was on her way.
So you got there before she got there?
Yes.
And you indicated that you were informed that she was deceased.
Yes.
Did you inform anyone of the fact that she had passed away?
No.
After giving that information, you said that she was in the room. Did you at any point go to the room where Layla Daniel was being held?
Yes, I went to the room, but only after they allowed the coroner and several other people into the room at that time. I wasn't allowed prior to that.
When you were in the room with Layla Daniel, did you do anything while you were in the room?
When I got in the room, I did start taking some pictures. They were undressing her or taking off what she had left on, and they were looking at just kind of looking her over.
What did you observe anything while you were there taking photographs?
I observed marks and bruises just all over her front and back when they did move her. They were talking, the doctors and the other staff in the room were talking about the fact that she had used the bathroom, which is, something that happens. She used the bathroom on herself that day. And so I was just taking notes.
After doing that observation, what were your next steps as part of your investigation?
So I waited with the coroner to be able to go and speak to the family in the room. We had the other child that was in the hospital as well. The other child was taken to do an examination as well, so I followed them to that examination.
And when the other child was speaking about Millie Place?
Yes.
And did Millie did you ask her any questions or did she make any statements to you?
Along the way to the room, she had said that her sister was choking on chicken. She said she missed her and wanted her. When we got to the room, the medical examiner asked her a few questions about her own marks and bruises, and she would say she was riding her bike or she fell at gymnastics.
And when she stated that her sister was choking on chicken, did she tell you if she saw that or someone had told her that?
She didn't tell me. She was talking to the doctor in the room, and she just said that she heard that her sister was choking on chicken.
Did she tell you who she heard that from? When she say who she heard that?
She said her second mommy.
And did she tell you who her second mommy was?
Yes.
Who was that?
Ms. Rosenbaum.
Prior to that, had you had any interaction with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
We've seen each other in court on several other defects cases, but not formally met.
When you say seen her in court with other defects cases, what was that occasion about?
To my understanding, she was working, interning in the legal field, and so we would see each other in court, not on the same cases or anything, but she would be present during those hearings.
And during those hearings, what would you be testifying or just present? What would you be doing at those hearings?
So because I was after-hours supervisor, if we did any removals after hours, the next morning we would have a court hearing, and so again, I would see her in the courtroom or in the court building. So.
And did y'all ever have a case together where y'all worked together during that course of time?
Not that I know of.
And were you present in the room with Millie during her examination?
Yes.
And what were your observations during that examination?
She did have several marks and bruises. She had some rashing, some other little scratches that she attributed to sometimes riding a bike.
Did Millie at all tell you where she was when she indicated that her sister was choking?
No, initially she couldn't tell us anything. The only information she said was that she was upstairs, or they had just finished eating and she went upstairs.
Was she able to tell you what the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, was doing? She observed her doing anything while she was still in the home?
No.
And I can show you, did she not tell you or you don't recall?
No, I don't recall.
Okay, looking at your report, would that help you?
Sure.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what she would say to you, if anything?
Yes.
And what was that?
She stated that she observed Rosenbaum. She had just fed them, and she had went upstairs, and they were told to get ready to go.
And did she observe Ms. Rosenbaum do anything when she came downstairs?
Patting her on the back.
Did you remain in the room during Millie's examination?
I did.
After her examination, did you have any more, did you do anything else as part of your investigation?
Yes, based on the bruises in the child's report, I made a call to my direct supervisor, which is Ebony Taylor, and let her know the concerns thus far of the case, and she explained that the child would have to be removed or kept in defects custody at that time.
And after getting that information, what are the next steps that you take?
I went with the coroner to the room where the family was, where the Rosenbaums were.
Do you recall who was present at that time?
There was a lot of family members. That I can't remember everyone that was in the room, but I do recall Mr. Rosenbaum and Ms. Rosenbaum and her husband.
And did you speak with them and ask them any questions?
So the coroner led with the questions, and if I had any additional, I would ask after him. So yeah.
And what information did you receive from the Rosenbaums? Let me ask you, what were you asking them questions about?
Their kind of routine for that day, what happened.
And did you get that information?
Yes.
And what were you told as far as the routine for the day?
So Mr. Rosenbaum and Ms. Rosenbaum, Ms. Rosenbaum went to school in the evening while Mr. Rosenbaum watched the children during the day. if memory serves me correct. And I was also told that at the time, Ms. Rosenbaum was the caretaker for the children because Mr. Rosenbaum went to work. They had been eating at the table. They were getting ready to go somewhere. We're going to go somewhere after they ate. They had the chicken from the jail the day before. It was what the children were eating with some vegetables. She had asked the kids to go upstairs to get ready to go while she, in turn, was getting their sneakers or their clothing. And
You said they had somewhere to go. Did she inform you where they were going?
I don't recall.
Would you put that in your report?
I might have put it in my report.
Looking at that, would that help?
Sure. Okay.
Do you recall now where they were headed to?
Yes.
And where were they going?
She had a board meeting that night with the Board of Commissioners.
Do you recall around what time she said these activities began?
I didn't get exact times that day, just a rundown of what they had going on.
I think I stopped her. She was getting something while
Right.
when the girls were upstairs.
Right, she was getting their shoes and socks, it seemed, and she explained that she had her back turned, and the now deceased child was in her chair, high chair it seemed, and was at the table and had been known to rock a bit. So when she heard the rocking, she just assumed that the child was rocking because she normally does that in her high seat. And when she turned around, she observed the child to be white in color and observed the child to be choking.
And did she tell you what happened once she made those observations of Layla?
Say that again, I'm
Did
sorry.
she tell you what she did when she saw the child being pale in color and shaking? Did she tell you?
Yes, she said she pulled open the high chair and she began to do what, like patting on the back and the Heimlich maneuver. She explained that she hadn't been really trained in it, but had been doing what she thought, she should be doing.
Did she tell you, besides patting her on the back, if she did anything else?
Yeah, she said after that, those attempts were unsuccessful. She had taken her out of the chair at one point. She had brought her over by the sink. She had lodged her finger down the child's throat to try to clear the airway. She had continued to pat her heavily on the back. She had taken a butter knife and putting it down the child's throat to clear the airway. At one point, she attempts to put her down. She says the child was like faintly breathing, so she puts her down or attempts to put her down on the floor, but dropped her a little bit. And then when she got down onto the floor, that's when she started to kind of hold her to start doing some more compressions and trying to get a hold of the police to do the CPR.
So let me ask you, when she said it was unsuccessful, did she ever tell you that she saw anything come out of Layla's mouth?
No.
And you said she was kind of holding her down. Did she describe to you how she was holding her down?
Yeah, it was almost like she was pinning her legs down, like on top of her, to start to do compressions again. That's how
Did she tell you where she was doing compressions?
Yes, on her chest.
Did she tell you anything else about what measures she took to try to dislodge this item from Layla's throat?
No, that was the main thing. She did say she called the police and they were informing her what to do or instructing her by phone.
When you're having this conversation with defendant Jennifer Rosenbaum, what was her demeanor?
Initially, she seemed pretty calm. She kept talking about, saying that she couldn't cry. She was in shock. She kept saying, my eyes are dry. I don't know why I can't cry. But she was shaking. She was in shock, during the conversation.
Do you recall what Mr. Rosenbaum's demeanor was?
He was crying. He was distraught.
At some point, did someone tell the family that Layla was deceased?
The coroner did.
Do you recall that Ms. Rosenbaum made any statements once the coroner announced that Layla was deceased?
I don't recall her making a statement.
Would you have put that in your report?
Yes.
Would it help by looking at
Yes.
it?
Okay.
Does that help you refresh your recollection? And what do you recall her saying?
So at the time, she explained that she hadn't been aware of the marks and bruises and things the child had, or she explained that they had come from the gymnastics. Even then, she wasn't really crying or anything. She just was explaining that, how could this have happened, or she didn't understand what was going on.
During that time, had you told her anything about bruises on Layla?
No, she explained that the case manager had told her.
So prior to yourself and the coroner coming inside, to your knowledge, was she already aware about bruises on Layla?
Not to my knowledge, but after speaking to her during that session, she did explain that the case manager had questions about the bruising because she was questioned about it.
During that time, did you speak with Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And what did Mr. Rosenbaum tell you about this incident?
He explained that day in particular, he was going to work, and normally they take shifts like I explained before. And he explained that the child was fine when he was there. She had been sleeping, I think, earlier that day. He explained, he was trying to explain to me at some point, I think Ms. Rosenbaum had kind of, interjected a few times. But to his recollection, last time he saw her, she was awake, she was fine. She had actually went to sleep while he was there, and there was no concern prior to him leaving.
Was there a discussion in regards to where the children would go when they were, as far as daycare was concerned?
There was, but I don't remember the full conversation. Sorry. Yes, here you go.
And what was that conversation?
Yes, so I asked if they went, because I was trying to figure out if they had been anywhere else besides at the home of the Rosenbaums. And when daycare was brought up, I was told that they didn't qualify for daycare based on how much they made, but they had, had asked for services at one point.
Initially, with regard to states 214 already entered into evidence. Do you know what that is?
Yes, it's an application for child care.
And who was that in regards to?
Ms. Rosenbaum,
And what happened with that application?
you're asking me to, what does it
Yeah, what
say?
does it say?
Okay, it says that their application
You
was.
don't have to read it out loud, just read
Okay,
it.
it was denied.
Okay. And show you states exhibit 214 on the screen. What's that denial date? Or the letter indicating that they were denied services?
August 7, 2015.
After speaking with Mr. Rosenbaum and the Rosenbaums, what do you do next as part of your investigation?
I explained that the other child would have to be removed per defects protocol because we didn't have clear evidence to identify the child, to substantiate or unsubstantiate at that time, but also to clearly state that the child would be safe, the living child would be safe in their care. And so I explained that child would be removed. I had asked for whatever car seat or things they had at that time. And then, of course, I explained that I'll be following up with them to get additional information.
After that, did you have any more involvement with the defendants?
No.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Ross.
Good morning, Ms. Carter.
Good morning.
My name is Corinne Muller. I just have a number of questions for you.
Sure.
If you don't understand my question, please let me know. If you don't hear me, please let me know.
Okay.
You were not involved with the children prior to Layla dying, correct?
Correct.
And your role at the hospital was to talk to people.
My role with defects was to assess the situation once the case came in, yes.
So, as part of your role, did you talk to people?
I did.
Okay. And you spoke to nurses, correct?
I spoke to the hospital staff, the EMT, who was in the room, yeah.
And you spoke to Millie, didn't you?
The living child, yes.
Living child. And she was not shy, and she was very articulate, wasn't she, for her age?
She was shy at some points, depending on who was in the room.
Do you recall saying that she was not shy?
I don't recall.
She told you she was upstairs when Layla was choking, correct?
Correct.
And when she came downstairs, Mama was counting, right?
Yes.
Mama was counting. And what did you understand that to mean?
Possibly doing the Heimlich maneuver or doing compressions.
And you also talked to Millie about her bruises.
Mm-hmm.
And she accounted for the bruise that goes down her buttocks. She got that from playing outside, she said.
She did.
And she said that her left elbow was hurt when she fell off the bars and her elbow hit her knee, correct?
I don't recall.
She told you she got the other bruises from gymnastics, correct?
Correct.
And she was questioned again, and she said she didn't know how she got the bruises, correct?
She was questioned at the same time with the medical examiner, yeah.
And she didn't know how, that time she didn't know how she got the
Right,
bruises.
right.
One time she had an account, and then,
Like she didn't, yeah.
then she didn't, correct? And you're aware of forensic interviewing in your business, right?
Correct.
You're aware that you're supposed to repeat questions to children over and over, correct?
Can you ask that question again?
You are aware that people are not supposed to repeat questions to children over and over.
In a forensic interview, yes, but that wasn't a forensic interview.
I understand.
Okay.
But normally, you're not supposed to ask questions, you're supposed to let the forensic interviewer do the interview, correct?
The medical examiner can ask questions, yes.
But when a forensic interview is involved, the forensic interviewer likes for the child not to have been questioned before the forensic interviewer gets to her, correct?
Correct.
You went over with Millie, good touch and bad touch, right?
Correct.
And you asked her if she was touched inappropriately by the Rosenbaums, correct?
Correct.
And she said that Anthony,
I would object to this on the question, Judge.
That's not
doors
relevant
into this case.
Doors been opened, Your Honor, and it's important to distinguish who's who in this.
It was, yeah, I'm not certain, she says the door has been opened, I don't know who opened the door. I know Ms. Hall asked questions about it earlier on.
But Ms. Johnson, the nurse,
Let's not let the jury step back. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 10:30. We're going to take our break, or at least you're going to have your break, and we'll see you soon. About 15 minutes. Let me tell you where I start on this so that we can begin the discussion there and know what my case is. My understanding is that we had agreed by way of motion and lemony at the beginning of the case, and it was actually something that your side insisted upon, that this forensic interview as it related to this molestation allegation was not to be inquired into to any great extent. Is that where we start?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. And I don't recall anything that the state has done or said that has resulted in the door sort of opening. In other words, some reason why this pretrial agreement on the motion of lemony should be now set aside.
Michelle Johnson, the British nurse, mentioned that she talked to Millie, and that Millie said that Layla's daddy Anthony touched her lube.
That's true.
Judge, first of all, she was not a nurse. She was a CSI photographer. And when I asked her a question about Millie telling her something, I was thinking about bruises. And when she started to go in that direction, I quickly moved around it because I can't anticipate what people are going to say. We instructed them.
Oh, no, I understand. I don't think we can ever sort of perfectly control how people are going to respond to these questions. Nevertheless, that it was the response, and there might be a need for some further clarification in view of that. It really depends on how far we want to go, doesn't it?
And Judge, the state's believe that it's irrelevant, it has nothing to do with this case. And I don't know what would be the benefit of going down that road about possible allegations against someone who is not seated at that table that was charged with sexual charges, and nothing happened for it. It serves no benefit to this particular case. I think that Ms. Maul is continuing, as she said, to disparage Millie's credibility. She's done that with several witnesses. So I don't understand what the purpose of it would be.
I thought that the agreement was that the only purpose of bringing this up was to show how it was not related to this case.
That's right. And that's all I wanted to do with this one, is just to make sure that it's identified as Anthony and not Joseph.
Okay.
I think she's done that, Judge, without going into, she said Anthony did this. She asked her whether or not she observed that she's been inappropriately touched by the Rosenbaums. She said no. I think we're done. That's accomplished what she's attempting to accomplish.
I haven't finished, John. I was just in the middle of my question.
Okay, so you're planning to just be clear that it was Anthony and not Joseph,
That's right.
and then move on to the next
Move on.
thing. That's an appropriate level of clarification. I'll allow that, and we can resume after the break. Any questions about that? All right, is the defense ready?
We left off, we were talking about if she had been touched inappropriately. She told you that Anthony touched her inappropriately, correct?
Correct.
And she was very, very clear about that, wasn't she?
Yes.
You wrote in your report that the girls were very active girls, didn't you? From all the information you got.
Correct.
And when you were talking to Millie, when you were talking to Jennifer, she told you that she tried to see what was possibly causing the choking, correct?
She told me that they were eating the chicken and the child was choking on chicken.
Okay. But she told you she looked in to see what could be causing the choking. She looked in the throat.
She told me that she put her hand down her throat.
Okay. So she also told you that she used the butter knife to hold down the tongue while she put her hand down the throat, correct?
No, she told me she took the butter knife and put it down the child's throat to clear the airway.
And she told you that both children were very active and that Layla fell even after the cast was put on, correct?
She did.
And she told you that a few days later, after gymnastics, she happened to be walking funny, correct?
She did.
And that night, and that might be there, I'm sorry. You also spoke to Samantha White, correct? correct?
I did.
And Samantha White told you she was crying, basically.
Yes.
And she told you that she last visited the children in early November.
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
I just want to get some clarification in regards to the leg being broken. What was her recollection as far as the order in which they noticed that something was wrong with Layla's leg?
What was whose recollection?
The defendant, what did she tell you happened first?
That she had got hurt at gymnastics. However, later on, when they were examining the child, it was the deceased child, they noticed that there was bulging, that the cast hadn't been either put on timely or removed timely. And so that's all the information I had received on that day.
Did she tell you if they were directed to the hospital or if there was some time in between before they took her for treatment?
No, I was told that there was some time in between.
Nothing further.
Anything else, Ms. Wall?
Who told you about the bulging in the cast?
I was told that the x-ray was taken of the deceased child on the day of that she passed, and that the bulging that they noticed on the x-ray was due to it not being properly either removed or wasn't put on timely.
And what part of the body are we talking about?
The leg?
The leg.
Mm-hmm.
So, and your information came from whom?
From the medical examiner in the room that day.
Oh, thank you.
Nothing further.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. And you're excused unless there's an objection.
No objection.
You're excused. Let's take calls next, please.
State call Chelsea Hubbard.
Chelsea Hubbard. Right here, ma'am. Please raise your right hand for the record, Ms. Hubbard.
Do you swear for the testimony you're about to give to be the truth and the whole truth so help you God?
Yes.
Please, you can have a seat before your hand. Please state and spell your first and last name.
Chelsea Hubbard, Chelseah, Hubbard.
And Ms. Hubbard, do you know the defendants in this case, Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And how do you know them?
I went to high school with Jennifer. We reconnected when we went to church after we had graduated, and I met her husband, Joseph.
And about what time was it when you reconnected with her after high school?
2015.
And in high school, were you guys friends at all?
We didn't run in the same circle, but we knew each other.
And then in 2015, you reconnected?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship in 2015?
I had been serving at Turning Point Church in a couple of different areas, and I noticed that she started coming and was in some beginners, new people classes, and just reconnected with her. I knew her from high school, so I thought it was a good opportunity to reach out to her.
And you said Turning Point?
Yes.
And were you a member of Turning Point?
I was.
In 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been a member of Turning Point?
Probably since 2013.
And what was your involvement with Turning Point?
I worked with teenagers, I worked with 3-year-olds, and I sometimes would be a host in the sanctuary, and then I would also come in during the week and prepare the classrooms for our Sunday services.
So in 2015, were you aware of the activities and different events that would be held at the church?
Yes, ma'am.
In 2015, did Turning Point have a daycare that operated Monday through Friday?
No, ma'am.
Would they have events during the week, during the weekdays?
The only event they would have during the weekdays would be the first Wednesday of every month would be a Wednesday evening service that was about 7 p.m.
And what would that service be?
Just like a normal church service, it would probably be more like an hour and a half long than the traditional hour on Sunday, and it was only the first Wednesday of every Sunday.
And were there other activities that they may have at the church during the week besides that first day of the month, Wednesday?
The only other activity they would have would be for teenagers, and it would be during the other 3 or 4 Wednesdays of the month, but it would be exclusively for the teens and the teens' teachers.
And what time would those events occur for the teenagers?
Probably around 7 p.m.
So at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. on a Wednesday during 2015, would there have been any activities that required children to be at Turning Point?
No, ma'am.
And you said unless you were a server for the teen event on those certain Wednesdays when that had that program. What was the name of the program?
It was called Impact.
And were you aware whether or not Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum were servers or would have been involved in those activities on those Wednesdays?
They were not.
And how do you know that?
I was pretty heavily involved, and you have to finish this program called Growth Track, and to my knowledge, they had not finished it.
During 2015, would you have interactions with the Rosenbaums?
Yes.
Where were those interactions occur?
So Layla would be in the 2-year-old classroom to the left of mine. I would be with the 3-year-olds, and then Millie would be in the class to the right of mine. So she would pick up Layla, pass my classroom to go pick up Millie. So I would see her in the hall, and we would make small talk.
And would you see the girls at that time?
I saw them one time.
One time?
One time.
One time at the church?
Yeah. Well, when she was getting the children, I only saw them one time that I made conversation with her.
Okay. And what was that conversation?
I remember making a comment about the girls had on a cute outfit and asked who made those. One of the girls said my mommy made them. That was all that I remember from that conversation.
Did you see any bruises or injuries or anything that caused you concern?
No, ma'am.
Would you ever see the girls outside of the church?
We had a trunk or treat that was in October, and I was working the trunk or treat, so I was really busy. But I remember as I was preparing, I saw her come in and was walking, holding Layla, and Millie was walking next to her.
Did you have conversation at that time?
It was just a very quick, hey, what happened to your leg? And because she had a cast on at the time.
Who had a cast on?
Layla did.
And when you asked, hey, what happened to your leg, did you get any information about what happened to her leg?
Jennifer said it happened at gymnastics.
Did you get any more details or information about that injury at gymnastics?
No, ma'am.
Outside, so we talked about seeing them at church. Did you ever see them outside of church?
One time I had them over to my house. I had hosted a paint party for a couple of ladies at our church. Jennifer was still fairly new, so I invited her as well. It's just a thing where you paint like a sign that you put on your front door. And Layla, Millie, and my son went to go play in his bedroom. And Jamie, my son, came out crying, saying that Layla had beat him up. He was being dramatic. He wasn't injured, but I went back to check, and Jennifer came back as well. And I took my son into the other end of the house to just give her privacy to handle the situation. She walked out about 5 or 10 minutes later. I did not hear what the interaction was between them.
Do you recall when that paint party was at your house?
October 11th, 2015.
So on October the 11th, 2015, when they were at your home, did Layla have a cast on at that time?
No, ma'am.
And after they left, did you observe, or while they were there, did you ever observe any bruises or injuries on the girls at that paint party on October the 11th?
No, ma'am.
After that, did you have any further interaction with the defendant?
Later, after Layla died, and it was before anything came out in the news, I just tried to continue to reach out to her because I felt bad for what had happened, and we didn't know anything more than that she had choked. She was supposed to come to my house because I reached out to her, and then that day she didn't show up, and I found out she had been arrested.
After she was arrested and after Layla died, did you continue to be friends with the defendants?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you see each other? Would you talk? And so how often did that happen?
Pretty frequently. I felt that the law said she was innocent until proven guilty, and I knew nothing else to go off of. I had known her from high school, so I had every reason to believe her. So I continued to just try to be there and be supportive.
And did you ever speak with her about, I guess, whatever you heard or knew about the case?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did she tell you?
It was kind of just whenever something would come up in the news. Like, for example, when they in gymnastics that the news reported that she had not been enrolled, then she said, well, it was a trial class, that she got injured during that, so she wouldn't have technically been enrolled. When a news report came out that she had been injured and had bruises all over her body, she basically just told me that it was red spots equivalent to mosquito bites and that it was being exaggerated.
And that was in regards to Layla?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you still continue to be friends with her?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, did you stop your friendship?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the reason that you stopped being friends with the defendant?
She was trying to get her husband signed up for a fundraiser my son's school was doing that was at his school, and I felt that it was inappropriate.
And did you communicate that to her in any way?
I sent her a text message explaining why I needed to distance myself.
During the time before did she respond to you at all?
I didn't give her an opportunity to. I just blocked her on my cell phone and all social media.
Prior to you blocking communication with her, how was your relationship with her? Would you go out, do things
Yes,
together?
ma'am.
And what types of things did you do?
We would watch TV or watch a movie. Believe we've gone out to eat before. Just standard things that you would do with a friend.
Would you do things for her and she do things for you?
She did things for me. I don't think that I really did things for her.
What types of things would she do?
She would give us gifts, such as she gave us gift cards for eating out, massages, movie theater tickets. She gave my children presents and us for Christmas. They weren't reciprocated, though.
Did she ever talk to you any further about this case during that period of time when you were still friends, outside of the things that you told us today?
I don't believe so.
And at any point, did you have any conversation with Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
It was right after she had been arrested, and I got a phone call from him, and he said that Jennifer had told him that Layla had been injured at my house during the paint party.
Is that something that had occurred at your house?
No, ma'am.
And what was your response to him?
I told him that didn't happen.
Nothing further, Ms. Moore.
have a good morning. My name is Corinne Wall. I just have a number of questions for you. If you don't hear me, please let me know. If I'm not clear, please let me know. You had been on social media with Jennifer,
Yes, ma'am.
and you had sent her Facebook messages and emails, correct?
I don't think we sent emails, but probably Facebook messages.
And isn't it true that you said on Facebook that she was an amazing mother to the girl?
I thought she was.
And you said that she was the only person to act as a responsible mother figure in their lives, correct?
From what she had told me, that was what I believed.
And from what you had seen?
I only saw the girls 3 times. So from what I thought she had been an amazing mother because I can't discipline my children quietly in 5 minutes and then behave like angels the rest of the day.
And isn't it true that you said that the girls loved Jennifer? It was very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And every week when I saw them, they would be hugging on Jennifer and calling her mommy.
They did.
And you said every week when I saw them, right?
I only remember seeing Layla hug Jennifer when I made the comment about the clothes, and she said that my mommy had baked them. And I asked Jennifer, I kind of looked at Jennifer confused, and she said that they called her mommy sometimes.
Would it help refresh your
Sure.
recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that what you said is that those girls sure did love Jen? It was so sweet. Every week when I saw them, they would be hugging on Jen and calling her mama.
All I had to believe was the facade that was being put on.
Can I ask you to answer my question?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I said. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say you could really see the love and connection between them?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard.
At some point, did your opinion change about her being?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel she's still an amazing mother?
No, ma'am.
Nothing.
Nothing further.
All right, thank you. Let me just sit down. Any objections to this?
You know what you said?
All right, you're excused. State calls, next witness. Dangerous, we'll start you with.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
And can you please state your name for the record?
It's Tori Harrison.
And did you previously go by Tori Roberson?
I did.
And can you just spell Harrison for us?
Harrison.
And you can also spell Roberson for the record as well.
Roberson.
And in 2015, did you go by Tori Roberson?
Yes.
Now, how are you currently employed?
I work for the Henry County School System.
And what do you do with the Henry County School System?
I teach special education.
And prior to your current job, where were you employed?
Southern Crescent Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center.
And is there an acronym that you have?
Yes, it's SCAC-CAC.
SCAC. And what kind of place is SCAC?
So we interview children who have been abused sexually or physically. We talk about different allegations. We do forensic interviews. We do medical examinations, physical exams. We do sexual assault exams also.
And how long did you work at CAC?
I worked there for 2 years, and I was an intern prior to that for 6 months.
And what were your duties?
Mostly I went in for medical examinations. I also did some advocacy for the sexual assault line, the crisis line, but I mostly went in with medicals, and I did also forensic interviews.
And why did you go in with medicals? What was your purpose?
I was technically the child life specialist, so I went in to help children to kind of keep their mind off it. I would tell jokes, they'd play on the iPad. I just kind of lighten the mood for them because it's a very tense moment for them. It's kind of scary because their parents don't go in with them, so I play with them when they first come in. They see me, I'm the first face, and then I play with them until it's time for them to go back, and then when I would go in with medical, so they'd have a friendly face to go in with them.
I also indicated that you did forensic interviews. What is a forensic interview?
So it's just a conversation with a child to get details for law enforcement or defects about a case, and they can be anywhere from like very structured to non-very structured to non-structured.
And what training have you had to allow you to do a forensic interview?
I did child first training
And
in
when did you do that training?
2014.
And is that a nationally accepted protocol?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, approximately how many forensic interviews did you do during your time at the CAC?
I think I did a little more than 100.
Now, since you were training on Child First in 2014, have you had any additional training?
No, ma'am.
And when was the last time that you conducted a forensic interview?
2016.
Now, while working at the SCAC, how did you receive referrals?
We received referrals through DFACS and law enforcement.
Now, on November 18 of 2015, did you conduct a forensic interview at Millie Place?
I did.
And at what time is that?
I believe it was in the morning.
And we're looking at your notes assist you giving us that time.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to mark it for the record as states 384. May I approach the witness?
You may.
It was at 9:30 a.m.
Now, prior to speaking with Millie, what information did you have about why Millie was at your SCAC?
We knew that her sister had died. That was it.
And prior to conducting the forensic interview with Millie, did you speak with law enforcement or defects?
Yes, I spoke with Detective Thompson.
And while speaking to Detective Thompson, did he ask you to address certain topics with Millie?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you write those specific questions or topics down in your notes?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were those specific questions he asked?
I'm just going to read them for those. That's okay. So we talked about discipline methods, what they ate at home, if they played any sports, did Millie see anything, where she was, and I always just asked, did anyone tell you to say something today, because it's part of the child first protocol. And then, okay.
So those were the specific questions Detective Thompson asked you to
Yes, ma'am.
ask. Now, who's in the room with you when you do the interview of Millie?
Just me and Millie.
And can this interview be viewed by law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
And where is law enforcement when they're viewing an interview?
So we had an upstairs room. That is where the video camera and the microphone were both. It went up to the TV upstairs, so they could view it. Mm-mm.
Glass or anything?
No, ma'am.
Now, based on your experience, how do children generally act during forensic interviews?
They have a wide range of emotions. Generally, some kids are very awkward and they don't want to tell you a lot. Some kids come out, they just want to get it off their chest. Some children cry. Some really feel relief. It's just a wide range of things that can happen.
Now, during your interview of Millie, was she able to tell you when she did not remember something?
Yes.
And do you remember what she said she did not remember?
After watching the interview again, I noticed that she told me that when she could not remember the names of the monsters, when we had just talked about, she watched the Monsters University movie.
And why were you talking about Monster University?
So I just try to build rapport with them so that they know that, I'm a friendly person and they can talk to me.
And is the building of rapport done at the beginning of the interview?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during your conversation with Millie, who first brought up the fact that her sister Layla had died?
Millie did.
And during your interview of children, is it customary to ask the children about who they live with?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it customary to ask about their home life?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during your interview with Millie, was she able to distinguish between what she saw versus what she was told?
Yes.
And do you remember when she did this?
Yes. We were talking about where she was when Layla had died. She said she was up in her room, and I said, did you see anything? And she said no. So that indicated that she didn't see it, but she had been told that she did die.
Now, did Millie show you the bruise on her her left arm?
Yes.
And did she ever tell you how she got the bruise?
Yes, she said she was doing a cartwheel because she said she did gymnastics.
And what, if anything, did Millie say her mommy and daddy put on her bruised left arm?
She wore an orange sleeve, and then sometimes her dad would put some cream on it to make it hot. It made it hot and cold.
The hot and cold cream?
Mm-hmm.
Did Millie tell you that she had a bruise on her right hip and buttocks area?
I do not remember.
And did Millie ever tell you how her sister Layla hurt her leg?
No.
If you were able to review a transcript of your interview, would that help you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
May I put your legs down?
Min?
Just direct you to them. direct you to page 14.
Okay. Can you restate the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Did Millie ever tell you how Layla hurt her leg?
Yes, she said she did gymnastics with her.
Now, did Millie say who watched her during the day?
She said that her mom and her dad did.
Did Millie ever say she went to daycare?
No.
Now, other than your interview with Millie on November 18 of 2015, do you have any further involvement in the case?
No, ma'am.
Can I approach the witness, sir? I'm going to show you what I previously marked as State's Exhibit 385 and see if you recognize the exhibit.
Yes.
And how do you recognize it?
This is the interview that I did.
With
Millie.
And is it a fair and accurate copy of that interview that you did with Millie on November 18 of 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
Any changes, deletions, additions?
No, ma'am.
This time I tender State's Exhibit 385 into evidence and ask for permission to publish.
It's admitted to be published.
And Ms. Harrison, how long is the interview of Millie?
I believe it's around 30 minutes.
Would you like to have the lights?
Yes, please.
Turn it down.
that's what you got liking, that's right. Can you let my phone with a little you have for me? You want to do that camera? What do you think when you look into that camera? Not to be person? What's that? How do you know me? Yes, you can have me. You can have me. The big one or the big? What are their names? I think not friends. That's okay. They're not bad to me. Look. Mom, do you live in a house or an apartment or something else? I live in a house. You live in a house? Who lives in a house with you? My mommy and daddy. You live in a house with your mommy and daddy? Because my sister Layla died. She died? How did she die? She was choking chicken tenders. She choked on chicken tenders? Did you see her choke on chicken tenders? No. Where were you at? I don't know. They wanted to get me to and you said you were up in your room when that happened too? Did you see anything after it happened? Well, I did not hear anything else. She was flat. I did not see it. You didn't see her? No. She said she was flat for some reason. She said she was flat for some reason? What does that mean? It means you were really flat on the ground. You were really flat on the ground. And so, when did you come downstairs? When my mom told me that night when we were going to go to the hospital. When you were in the hospital? Well, not really, my sister. Oh, okay. She was trying to get stomach back in the car. I'm like, Mom, why don't you shoot them? I'm in the car. Then I just started crying because I really said, yeah, because when you see the other cry, it makes me cry. And it's the same that I felt makes you cry. You said that you were upstairs. What were you doing when you were upstairs? Just playing with it. What is that here? Just playing with it. Just playing. You don't have any toys or anything that you were playing with? Yeah, I played with my body. I was just doing here. You were in your upstairs? Yeah. That's fun. What are you doing here? I was just doing the other. Yeah. I got him by the top. You got him by the top? And when you said that your sister choked on the chicken tender, do you want to go to the chicken tender or do you want to eat other things? The chicken tender. You want to eat chicken tender in the dish? I don't want to eat. You don't want to eat chicken tender? Do you want to eat that? Carrots and yogurt? What kind of carrots? Orange. They're orange? What color is your yogurt? Pink. Pink? What flavor is it? Do you want to just pink? Just pink. And no flavor? But I have some personal body that I kind of taste inside. And some personal body? Well, not inside the yogurt, but outside of the bottle. Yeah? What do the people look like? Good one? Actually, Patrick? Yes. Do you like SpongeBob, Patrick? Yes. Yeah, I heard they are funny. That's the first I know. He's such a grump. He's grumpy. Yes. That's a really good turn on your story. And when you're in your house with your mommy and daddy, is there something wrong? What happened? I just like have food later. I have to stand in the corner. You have to stand in the corner? Does anything bad happen? You stand in the corner and go to bed? No? Okay. And I know that you said that you like to play, and sometimes, do you play any sports outside of your house? No. Do you do like fitness or ballet or gymnastics or soccer? Why? Well, I have a little bit of that anyway. What about gymnastics? Do you do gymnastics? What do you do gymnastics at? In your yard? Yeah, you're practicing cartwheels. You're practicing cartwheels? You think I'm good at it, yeah? I'm sure that you probably are. Can you like do like I don't think I keep that on the straight? Yeah. I don't think straight from old mommy or do that. You want to teach your old mommy how to do that? Wait, can you do that? Hold on. Her name is Tactical Nanny. Her name is Tactical Nanny. And whenever you're doing gymnastics, do you ever get hurt at gymnastics? Well, yeah, because I hurt my arm. You hurt your arm? Yeah, let me see. What happened? I was in a cartwheel and it just busted up there. It busted up there? Because I was high above. I was looking up there, and then I fell down on the ground. Then I just pulled right at me, and then I almost fell, and then I kneed. It literally went over my arm. Oh. Did that do gymnastics for you? Yeah, that's actually a good way. That's actually a good way. That's why she had a fruit cap on her. Oh. Did you ever get hurt anywhere else? No. Did she do that high bar, please? No, she did a low bar. She did a low bar. She really had this whatever she was working her teacher. Every night I kind of threw it that way, and then it got a broken bone right in. Oh no. When y'all were on the bar, did people hold you up there, or did they let you go by yourself? They just like help some friends, and we can't do it. So do how they help you? Can you show me? We're like, we're trying to do a core out thing, and then when I hold on to the bar with my feet, then they just let me go. They just let you go. And whenever when Layla does the bars, do they for Layla too? When they were Layla at? But I was holding her every time she did gymnastics, and she was so little. Did they put it on her shoulders, on her wings, on her legs, or something else? She was like picking her up regular. Very not regular. Can you show me? She was just like turning them around and picking them up like this. So put them up like this? Like that? Yeah. I can't pick it up if I'm not picking them up. You can't pick them up? Can you show me on yourself where they would hold you? Are they like here, or like on your legs, or up here? I didn't know. That's how they make you up? Okay. So you got to do gymnastics? I mean, yeah. What things you got to do gymnastics? Oh, yeah. I have like a little movement here. From what? I don't know. You want to know? Did it happen at gymnastics or somewhere else? At gymnastics, I do not wear one that like shows, okay. I didn't use it before or anything. Yeah. But I have a picture we made together. We made a beautiful picture. Do you want to see it on your finger picture though? I sure will. Oh, but hang on. We have to finish it. Yeah, do you want to finish it? So I'll put some colors on that. What is your colors and my color? Which colors do you use? What colors do you have? You can have blue. Green. And that blue. I like that too. Thank you. And I got orange. And then you can get orange and green and pink. Let's try to let's you colors. Thank you. So this is extra color. I'm going to do extra colors. And then here's your orange. And orange. Oh, what colors? Thank you. This color, this color, and then we're going to pink. You want pink too? Yesterday, when you said that no was laying flat, Layla was laying flat, did you see, was your mom doing anything? Was your dad doing anything? Or? Well, my mom was like punching a lot of us together, but she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it? Where was your dad at? He was at work. He was at work? Yeah. So I was punching, the other my color thing. So you're collecting one? Where was your dad work? He's a police officer. He's a police officer? Where does your mom work? She's a lawyer. She's a lawyer? And you said earlier that you and Layla ate chicken tenders and fish and chicken nuggets and carrot and for dinner. For dinner? What's all your dinner? You can't remember. What did mommy and daddy eat? Oh, yeah, we were both at Chili's. You went much after you took a nap? Yeah, I'm there and who else you during the day? During the day? Does mommy go to work or does daddy go to work? During the day, my mom works in the also both services that they're working together. Both of them working there with us. So both watching? And what do mom and daddy eat? They just eat the one that's there. Who's the food? They eat whatever tastes sometimes. They do? Look at my picture. Your picture is so pretty. Put the window right here. Put the window right here. Flowers kind of like a tree. Yeah. So nice.
Some of that interview was a little bit difficult to hear. Why was that?
It's just such an emotional time. I think it's hard to hear because we're so close to the road also. We have the train tracks right across the road. And the sound system it picks up everything, every single thing. So you could hear me walking down the steps, you could hear other people walking down the steps. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure some of the things that are a little bit difficult to hear, I'm going to ask you a few questions about that.
Okay.
When you were talking to Millie about the day that Layla died, she had indicated that she was in her room. And then, what was the next thing she said?
That she was in her room and that she was playing.
And do you know what she said after that? And if you need the transcript to refresh your recollection.
Yes, please. And then she said she went into the ambulance after that, when she was in her room.
So she said, I went to the ambulance?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do you say?
I say, you went to the ambulance? And she said,
And then she says,
you know what?
and you say,
What?
and what does she say next?
She said she died just before they got there.
And when she said they got there, was that in reference to the ambulance?
I believe so.
At any time during that interview, did Millie ever describe being in a car accident?
No, ma'am.
During that interview, did Millie at any time describe being almost in a car accident, stopping her fast?
No, ma'am.
Now, Millie described an ointment or cream that was put on her injuries,
Yes, ma'am.
and how did she describe it?
That it was put on and then it was hot and then it turned cold.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 286. And if you could just let us know what you see here.
I see icy hot.
And what is it for?
Long-lasting pain relief.
And would that be consistent with what Millie was describing?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, towards the end of the interview, you left the room. Why did you do that?
So I usually leave the room after a good portion of the forensic interview is done so that I can go back up and talk with the detective who is there or DFACS just to make sure that they understand what's being said, to see if they need me to ask any more questions or if they need me to clarify something that they couldn't hear.
And is it typical during forensic interviews to step out of the room to talk to law enforcement or DFACS?
Yes, ma'am.
Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ross?
Did you ever ask her about being in a car that stopped suddenly?
No, ma'am.
You didn't talk to her at all about being in cars, did you?
No, ma'am.
Let me go back to your training.
Okay.
You said you were, tried Child First training in 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
How long a program is that?
It's a week-long program.
1 week?
Yes, ma'am.
And what other training did you have to do child interviewing?
You just had to do child first training.
Just that 1 week course?
Yes, ma'am. They have extensive other courses. No, ma'am, because you have to reach a certain level of forensic interviews.
And you had not reached that level?
No, ma'am.
Now, tell me, why is it important to have forensic interviewing? Why can't you just have a detective ask the questions?
So we do a forensic interview so that the child doesn't have to be interviewed multiple times, and they can be recorded and physically and so you can hear them, so that they can be played for other people, so that the child doesn't have to go through the trauma again and again and again.
Isn't it true that going over questions repeatedly may yield different answers on down the road?
Yes, ma'am.
That if you repeat the question and she answers, and then you repeat the question again, she's going to change the answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what you're trying to avoid, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
You're trying to get as pure a response as possible.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why you take her as quickly as you can from the incident that you're looking into.
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Now, is it appropriate? What I didn't understand was why didn't you have a detective sitting there asking questions with you?
Well, we don't want to scare the children. Not that detectives are scary, but sometimes they kind of clam up, and that's why we don't even have like the mirrored window so that they're out of sight, and we'll tell the children, I have a friend upstairs who'll be watching.
Why don't you bring another forensic interviewer and kind of pepper the person with questions?
Because you don't want it to be like you're investigating the child. You just want it to be a conversation, so it's easy. And sometimes it's not easy because...
With two people, it's very confusing. isn't it?
Right. Yes, ma'am.
And the whole purpose is to be as less confusing as possible and to get as clean as possible a response.
Yes, ma'am.
And you got that, right? You didn't have anybody sitting with you.
Correct. I tried my best.
You're educated to do this.
Yes, ma'am.
And you did it under conditions where the child is not distracted, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't you bring a friend to sit with her?
During the time when I left, what?
During the whole interview, why not have somebody sitting there with her that she feels comfortable with?
Well, sometimes even if you're with someone that you feel comfortable with, you don't want to disclose everything because that person knows you, and you could feel embarrassed about it later.
Isn't it also true that you don't want somebody there because that might taint what the child says?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she tell you that anyone told her to say anything?
No, ma'am.
Did she tell you that anyone told her to say she was up in her room?
No, ma'am.
And did she tell you she was in her yard doing gymnastics?
Yes, ma'am.
And she gave a specific answer to how she got the bruises, correct?
Yes, and she said she got it when she was in a cartwheel in the yard, and then later on she talked about how she got it when she was on the bars.
Okay, and she talked to you about her knee hitting her elbow.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have any reason to disbelieve that?
No, ma'am.
She told you that Layla did the little bars, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ideally, is there a protocol in every county with regards to how child abuse cases are supposed to be handled?
Yes, ma'am.
And does the child abuse protocol call for the interviewing of the child as soon as possible?
Yes, ma'am.
And does the protocol call for parents not to question, not to suggest, not to talk around the child about the incident?
That's just, in general, it's hopeful that that doesn't happen.
Okay, because that taints what the child would say.
Yes, ma'am.
And you may be hearing what the mother or the grandmother or the great-grandmother was saying instead of what the child was saying.
That would be correct.
And is this protocol also designed so that you do it under a very controlled setting?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you follow the protocol?
Yes, ma'am.
Protocol says you're not supposed to have anybody sitting with the child, correct?
Yes, ma'am, during a forensic interview.
And you're not supposed to have more than one questioner, correct?
Correct.
And you did that, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Andrews? Thank you, ma'am. You can step down.
Thank you.
And that's the excuse. And you're free to excuse for the case. All right, this is an appropriate breaking point. So let's take our break. We'll see you back here at 1:30.